Hello, BookTube. It was a bright, sunny day today and relatively warm. And my little dog, my Frida, there she is down there, she's still feeling a little subdued by her bath. I gave her a bath yesterday, and it went incredibly smoothly. It was so easy to do. God almighty, how did I get along without having a little dog? I can pick her up in one hand. She fits anywhere. And it's so easy to clean up. It's not the end of the world like it was with my other dogs. Uh, but it did take the wind out of her sails. It did seem to sort of set her back a little. Not traumatized or anything. She's still incredibly happy, still incredibly enthusiastic about everything. But she was very low key this morning, and that emboldened me. Since I knew that she was just going to sleep, she was just going to zone out on the couch. That emboldened me. That and the fact that it was a nice day. We very seldom get days here in the last month when it isn't pouring rain. So I put on my togs and I went to the Brattle Bookshop. For those of you who are new to the channel, the Brattle Bookshop is a used bookstore in downtown Boston, and it's fantastic. Just incredible. It's got all the virtues of all of the best used bookstores that you've ever been to. The beautiful building, tons and tons of selection, a big sale area, $1, $3, and $5 books. But it's got one other thing in addition to all of that that makes it even better, certainly than any other used bookstore that I've ever been to, which is massive turnover. A huge amount of turnover. So it has all of those things, but also the books are always changing. So you never know what you're going to find there, and you always find something. I almost always shop only outdoors at the $1, $3, and $5 carts. I sometimes buy something inside, but usually not. And today I went and I got a small handful of books, and I want to show them to you. Starting with this one, which I have not read. I have only read one book by this author, and it was a novel. And it was kind of okay. It was a little bit... It was called... I think it's mentioned on here somewhere. A Grave Fairy Tale was the name of it. And I kind of liked it. It was unmemorable, but it was sweet. The author is Esther Meinel, and this is Sussex Cottage. And it's not a novel. It's nonfiction. It's her story of prospecting on the Sussex Downs, in southeastern England, for a little cottage that she can call her own. And she decides, after looking around at a bunch of properties of various kinds and sorts in Sussex, that what she really wants to do is build her own house. As she says in this book, virtually nothing comes to mind that is as interesting or as exciting as building your own home. And so she does, and that's what this is all about. It's about the local color, the local characters, the nature, the seasons, the folklore of Sussex, and the Sussex Downs, and the giant barrows and whatnot, and what it's like to build a cottage there. What you would take into account there. I read a chunk of it on my way back from the Brattle today, and loved it. Loved what I read. So I'll be finishing the rest of it today. And I don't think it will be going anywhere. It's this author's fiction. I can take or leave, but her nonfiction is turning out to be quite good. So that was kind of a gamble. But when the outdoor sale cart books at the Brattle are so cheap that you can gamble easily without any trouble. So I did. And then the next one is a real find. I found a trade paperback of this probably 10 years ago at a Goodwill. And the spine was broken, it was falling apart, tufts of pages were coming out, and I wanted to read it so bad that, because I missed it when it first came out somehow, I wanted to read it so bad that I actually taped and used rubber bands to make that trade paperback hold together just long enough for me to read it. And I did, and then it completely fell apart. And I remember thinking, well, sooner or later, the Brattle will provide. Sooner or later, you will see a copy of that book at the Brattle. And I never guessed that I'd see a hardcover with a dust jacket, but I did. It's this. It's Anne Edwards' biography of Queen Mary. And there she is when she was Princess May of Teck. And there she is as her old self, the old battle axe queen herself. And I have a couple of biographies of Queen Mary, and I think she's utterly fascinating, just utterly fascinating. Came to England as a foreign bride of a prince, of the heir to the throne, and affianced to him and spent time with him and got to know him, and then he took sick suddenly and died. died of pneumonia when he, would have lived. In the age of modern drugs, he would have lived, but he didn't live. And instead of going home, the House of Windsor and her own family affianced her instead to his brother. So she stayed, and she ended up marrying a different person. and her mother is an incredible character, and her mother is given the full treatment in this book. And she ended up being an incredible character herself, sort of the spine of the monarchy. Not anything that you would know from The Crown. Eileen Atkins's performance in the first series of The Crown as Queen Mary was incomprehensible to me. I don't know why you would portray her as some sort of wan, bedridden thing, bedridden gossip, when she was kind of a force of nature right to the end of her life. But anyway, one way or another, no matter how you dramatize it, I love her story, and I loved this book. I was sorry that my trade paperback fell apart. And I love this character, as is evidenced by the fact that I wrote a NaNoWriMo novel about her. The Winter Queen is about Queen Mary. So I was overjoyed to find this. I will reinforce this dust jacket, and then this will go on my biography shelf, on the Windsor biography shelf. I'll have to move something to make room, because my biography shelf is slowly inching bigger and bigger. I have to find room for everything that's a keeper volume, and this one definitely is. Definitely room for more than one keeper biography of Queen Mary. What have we got here? Oh, yes. I was very happy to find this. I'll reinforce the cover just a bit. This is a classic, and I didn't have it. I went looking for it, and realized that the last time I had a copy, I mailed it off to one of you, and so now I have it again. I definitely want it. It's David Attenborough. It's The Life of Birds. This is the companion volume to one of his specials called The Life of Birds, which is, to my mind, even though I know that Planet Earth is just mind-expandingly gorgeous. It's just incredible. And I second that. It's an amazing thing to watch. If you haven't seen Planet Earth, you should see it. I think it might be on Netflix. But one way or another, it is awe-inspiring as a documentary. But The Life of Birds felt, and still feels to me, like the most personal thing that David Attenborough has done. The most suffused with his own personal wonder. I think he probably loves birds more than he loves any other kind of living thing on Earth. And if that's true, it certainly shows in that documentary. And it shows in this book, too. I was sorry to send it away, and I'm glad to have it again. This will go on the shelf next to Life on Earth, which is having a renaissance right now. It's having a reissue, because I think it's been, I don't even know, 50 years, 30 years, something like that, since Life on Earth came out. And Life on Earth is really good, too. Really, really good. Eloquent in parts. Life of Birds is also eloquent in many, many parts, so I was happy to find it. And then this next one was bought solely for the edition. It's this lovely Folio Society. I think it's a Folio Society. Here, let me see what it is. Who actually did this? Yes, it's a Folio Society slipcase of the Odes of Horace. This is the James Mischie translation into English with illustrations that aren't really anything to write home about. Let me show you these. These illustrations will not detain me long. But it's a beautiful sewn folio. Folio does such beautiful volumes. It's a sewn volume. It looks lovely, and it's got the slipcase box. It was an iffy thing. It was dirt cheap, so I got it. But it was an iffy thing because I like the Mischie translation, but only as a variation on Horace, not really as a translation of Horace. I've mentioned before that I have less and less patience with English translations of especially Roman poets that I love. Virgil, to a lesser extent, Catullus and Propertius, and most of all Horace. beyond everyone, Horace, my best friend, Horace. And I find more and more to quibble about, more and more that I don't like, more and more that's missing in English translations. I'm sure that when I haven't reread the Mischie translation since it first came out, which was 60 years ago, I'm sure that I'm going to encounter a lot of that feeling again, that I'm going to read these, and I'm going to reread them tonight, probably along with the finishing the Mine book, and I'm sure that I'm going to encounter a lot that I would have done differently or that's missing from the English or whatnot. But I figure this is lovely. and it was dirt cheap, and I'll have it anyway, and I will use it to mark the space because I know what I want. I know what I want. I want a big, beautiful, deckle-edge French flap, big, thick, 800-page volume of Penguin Classic Deluxe Edition called Horace that has a 30 or 40-page great introduction by a great, engaged person, whoever it is, don't know who it would be, a classicist or general essayist or whatever, an introduction that not only tells you everything you need to know about Horace, but also talks about his world and his art and everything, followed by 700 pages of translations of everything that Horace did in all kinds of variations with tons and tons and tons of footnotes at the bottom of every page, and then appendices in the back for appreciations of, in the Victorian era or the Edwardian era or the present era. One big volume called Horace. What I wouldn't give for such a thing. What I wouldn't give. I have all kinds of English language editions of Horace, including the Penguin Classics did a wonderful volume called Horace in English, which gives you every work of Horace, but with multiple translations all across centuries. That was wonderful. That was really good, but I'd want more. I want a great big book. And I can't imagine why somebody doesn't do that, because that would work in schools. You would make your money back. One way or another, this is going to be lovely on the shelf. And, a $1 folio society is not anything to sneeze at. They make a wonderful product. And then the last book is something that I've had before many times. As soon as I saw it, I realized that I didn't have it now, and I'm glad to have it, even though it's unbelievably sad. It's by Tim Flannery and Peter Sutton, and it is A Gap in Nature. And it is about extinct animals. And what we get are gorgeous paintings of each one of them. Paintings of these extinct animals. There's, if I can find it, there's one even of the Weddell sea cow, just sprawled across 2 pages. Let me see if I can find that. But this book gives their name, their classification, and everything that we know about them. Everything we know about their breeding habits, their mating habits, their distribution, and whatnot. And every single account on page after page after page of these dead animals, these animals that don't exist anymore, on every single page, in addition to all of that material, we also get the worst possible piece of data. The where and when they disappeared. The where and how they disappeared. We get that. We get them, the details of their disappearances. And that is just really, that is really depressing. But it's a gorgeous book. As far as a nature book to have and keep, this is one of them, absolutely. Now, I'm almost out of book here. I know that the Weddell sea cow is in here. I know that it is. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. It's the Stellar sea cow. This thing with barnacles all over it. But really, each of the pages is just the individual animals with a description of who they are and when they were and where they're gone. And one of the depressing things about, I mean, this is a depressing volume just in general, but one of the depressing things about it is how tightly clumped the end years are. You start to see a pattern recurring over and over and over again that these things were hunted to extinction sometime in the last 150 years. With some exceptions, of course. There's a big exception on the cover. But most of them were hunted to extinction in relatively modern times, within shouting distance, a couple of decades of being able to be photographed. And most of them were able to be photographed had they been found. I know there's a silver lining to something like this. It's a very slim one, but the very slim silver lining is that this might not be correct. For some of these, especially the smaller animals, they might still be alive. Some of them, somewhere, a breeding population somewhere. Not Stellar sea cow, not the dodo, but some of them. The word might not be final. It's just, this is the best information that field scientists have, is that these animals are gone. So it's a weird, emotional 1-2 punch, because it's beautiful. It's a keeper of a nature book, but it's also incredibly sad because it's full of animals you're never going to see. So that was it. That was my a totally impromptu Brattle trip today. We have A Gap in Nature to go right back on the shelf. Then the Odes of Horace in a Folio Society, just a lovely thing with illustrations. Then The Life of Birds will go right on the shelf next to Life on Earth. Then Matriarch, biography of Queen Mary that I will reinforce it, and it will go right on the shelf with Windsor biographies. And finally, Sussex Cottage, about building your own cottage on the Sussex Downs in the 1930s. So before World War II, before the end of the world. So that was it. That was a very pleasing Brattle trip. I don't know when I'll be back. But I will report when I do. You'll be the first to know. So I will wrap this up. But I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.